Hello everyone, welcome back to Agri Farming. Today we are back with how to grow organic kale in your backyard. Kale is a member of Brassicaceae family and related to broccoli, cabbage and cauliflower. It is a versatile plant that can grow in a wide variety of conditions, from traditional garden beds to raised beds or pots and even in flower gardens as an ornamental edible. The range of colors in kale plant leaves can make them stunning display for crop. Now, let's get into the different varieties of kale. Kale plant varieties are categorized into many types depending on their leaf type. These leaves are curly leaf, bumpy leaf and spare, and plain leaf. And within these types, there are many other varieties obtainable. But some common kale varieties are Red Russian, Vates, and Winter Boar. Choose the right kale variety for home garden depending on its availability and surviving ability in your area. The best variety to sow indoors will be dwarf kale, as many varieties can grow up to 3 feet tall, and this is one ideally suited for indoor space. Now, let's get into the soil requirement for growing organic kale at home. Kale plants like to grow in a rich soil that's high in organic matter with slightly acidic soil pH level. The high nitrogen content provided by the organic matter is essential for healthy leaf growth. Select a sunny spot and prepare the soil by adding plenty of organic compost. Kale plant grows best in full sun and cool, moist soil that is enriched with organic compost. Before planting, incorporate a legume cover crop or work in 30 pounds of compost per 100 square feet. Kale plant require moderate amounts of fertilizer rich in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Before you grow your organic kale garden, grow your soil. Consider adding soil amendments such as alfalfa, pellets, rock phosphate, green sand, and kelp meal to improve the structure of the soil and provide a slow-release mix of nutrients to plant roots. Seed germination for growing kale. Kale seeds are surprisingly hardy and can germinate in cool soil, though you are most likely to have success if you plant them in temperature levels above 21 degrees Celsius. Row cover can be used to warm up in the soil and keep seeds above 7 degrees Celsius needed for germination. When stored properly, your kale seeds should last up to 5 years. How to prepare a bed for growing kale organically. Kale beds are most effective when they are full sun and they filled with organic compost. Try to keep your pH levels between 6.0 to 7.0 for the best success. For a more robust harvest, grow a legume crop cover in kale bed before tilling over the soil in your kale. Sow seeds about half-inch deep, allowing 1 foot plants and 2 feet between rows. Fertilize with fish and seaweed and kelp extract to encourage more growth. After that, mulch around kale plants with a heavy layer of garden compost. Then, this keeps the soil cool, prevents moisture loss, and provides readily available nutrients to the shallow feeder roots. Size of container for growing kale organically. Select a container that is at least 12 inches deep and equal wide. Be sure to select pots with drainage holes at the bottom. Fill about 3 by 4 of the pots with well-drained soil. Because of its minimal space concerns, kale plants can easily grow in containers. Make sure you choose a pot that has at least 6 square inches of the plant growth to grow in, and then you can move it from sunny to shady places as the weather changes. If you plan to keep kale plants indoors, be sure to position them near a sunny window or under grow lights. The process of growing kale organically is: kale plant is pretty easy to grow once it's established. Be sure your plants get at least 1 inch of water per week, either from rain or the hose, and to fertilize kale once a month with fish emulsions or compost tea. The next step is for an early spring planting, you can start growing kale indoors 4 to 6 weeks before last frost date. To start kale seeds, sow seeds in small pots filled with planting soil and compost. Plant each seed at least half an inch deep and keep the soil around the seeds consistently moist until the kale seeds start to germinate. The third step is kale can be direct seeded in the garden or start indoors and then transplanted into the garden. You can direct seed in cold climates as soon as the soil temperature is at least 7 degrees Celsius. But kale plants will grow slower outdoors than indoors under lights. The next step is start plants indoors about 6 weeks before your last expected frost date. Kale seeds germinate quickly in warm soil and should sprout up to 5 to 8 days. Cover the seeds with about half inch of soil and don't allow the kale seeds to dry out before germinating. The last but not the least step is transplant your kale seedlings after the danger of frost has passed. Leave about 16 inch of spacing between the kale plants. This gives them room to spread and allow for an air circulation. In warm climates, kale can be direct seeded in late summer or early fall as well as in spring. A winter crop of kale in warm climates is much sweeter than a summer crop. Now, let's get into the caring kale plants growing in containers. Container-grown plants in kale require a little bit of extra attention than those grown in ground. Containers tend to dry out faster in hot weather and moisture levels could need to be checked daily. Water when the top of 1 inch of soil is dry to the touch. Pots and containers may require more frequent fertilizing. Plant roots can't expand beyond container walls to find nutrients in the ground, and regular watering flushes them from the soil. For indoor containers, a south-facing window still generally provides adequate natural light for healthy growth. Though, if your windows don't let in enough light, you might need to invest in an artificial source such as full-spectrum grow lights. Now, let's get into watering of kale plants. Kale tends to be thirsty plant and appreciates at least an inch of water a week, particularly during the hottest part of the growing season. Once cooler weather hits, you can limit your watering to only when the plant leaves begin to drop. It's a smart idea to keep your kale plants well fertilized throughout the growing season. Monthly injections of fish emulsions and compost tea can go a long way towards healthy leaf growth. You can keep your kale plants clean and hydrated by mulching heavily under each plant. Now, let's see organic pest and disease control for kale. Pests and disease tend to leave kale plants alone, but there are a few that have potential to wreak havoc on your plants. The common pest is the cabbage worm, and which is the larval stage of the white cabbage butterfly. These flying insects lay eggs on kale plants that soon hatch into cabbage worms that is so happily much on plants and create large holes on the leaves. The best way to control cabbage worms is to pick them off your plant leaves and squish them or use as an organic pest control spray to get them back under control. A floating row cover can stop the cabbage butterflies from landing on your kale and preventing them from laying their eggs. Kale plants are less prone to disease and they can be affected by some pests such as aphids, cabbage worms, and flea beetles. You can remove and destroy the affected leaves or entire kale plants, and using organic insecticides will be effective for controlling most of the pests on your garden. Now, here are some tips for your growing kale. The taste will be relatively bitter if grown in hotter climate under the shade, and the frost makes kale sweeter. If your kale leaves start rotting, add mulch to the crop once it is about 6 inches tall. Kale is good at resisting pests, yet some of the pests that can affect the crop includes aphids, cabbage worms, cutworms, and flea beetles. Adding organic fertilizer in pots along the growing season and keep picking withered plants' leaves. Then, this can help avoid pests and disease. Use bamboo sticks to support the kale plant growth in pots through winter. Now, let's get into the when and how to harvest kale. Kale plant should be harvested when the leaves reach full size. Older leaves are stripped off the plants first, allowing the younger leaves to continue to grow. Frost help improve the flavor of the fall planted crop. Kale can be stored for 2 to 3 weeks. Many gardeners leave kale growing in garden throughout the winter season. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe to this channel and please ring the bell button to notify you whenever new video is uploaded. Thank you for watching.